Okay, good morning, everyone. We will start right on the dot. Welcome to our CNS Connect webinar series. This one is on the CNS application process. And I am Debbie Slutsky, the Manager of Certification Programs at the ANA. And I just want to thank Amy Smith, CNS, and also our certifications coordinator here at the ANA for putting this series together. And for those of you who maybe this is your first one attending, we just started this series and we have a schedule of all of the CNS Connect webinars for 2022. So we invite you to check out the website, and the schedule will be available on that and in this platform too, where you are. So thanks for joining, and we hope that you check out some others as well. So we are recording this, and so you will be able to watch it after. And for those who can't join, this will be available to them as well. So I'm going to stop my video, but I'll still be here, and I'll come back for questions and answers after. We do invite you to put your questions in the chat, and so we won't interrupt the flow of the webinar, but we'll definitely be able to answer your questions at the end. So we'll be monitoring that chat. Amy is here with me as well, so she's going to help to monitor that chat, and then we'll answer your questions at the end. So thanks again for joining us. And I just, this probably mentioned a couple of times during the webinar, but we just want you to be aware of our annual ANA Summit. This one for 2022 will be in October. It'll be both online and in person, so another hybrid event. We have information, as you can see, the link is here on our website. And so we invite you to save the date and join us either in person or online. And the theme of the summit for 2022 is mental health. So, very important topic this year. Here's my email address. Many of you know it already. I also have one at nutritionspecialist.org. So I'm always invite you to email me with any questions on the CNS or the process, the application process. So I just want to begin, and many of you are students in qualifying degree Masters of Nutrition programs. Some of you may be interested in applying to an MS nutrition program. And so I know we have a number of, different participants in different stages of the process here. So some of you may know some of this information, and hopefully, this will be learning for many of you as well, and some reminders. But, I just want to kind of go over, what is a CNS and what are the benefits? So CNS professionals are advanced nutritionists and licensed healthcare providers with specialized training in nutrition. So that includes master's or doctoral degrees in nutrition. We have pathways for MDs, DOs, chiropractors, and many others, NDs, PharmDs, etc. And what are the benefits of the CNS? Well, the CNS offers a career path for the science and practice of personalized nutrition therapy. So this career path provides many of the same benefits historically available only to registered dietitians. And the CNS is the most advanced certification for personalized nutrition practitioners. CNS professionals practice science-based personalized nutrition therapy to prevent, manage, and treat disease and optimal health. They are spearheading the transformation from population-based to personalized nutrition, and from disease care to comprehensive health care. So the benefits of the NCCA accreditation, as you see this logo, the black and white logo here, the NCCA was established in 1987 by ICE, which is the Institute for Credentialing Excellence. And the NCCA accreditation is the leading standard for certification programs. It enhances trust in the certification to ensure that the certificant is current and competent in the nutrition field. So having an NCCA accredited certification sets you apart as a qualified personalized nutrition professional associated with other professionals in the field. And having that NCCA accredited CNS certification ensures both employers and clients that you have the highest level of credibility. So here we have eligibility requirements for the CNS. And this chart is on the BCNS Certify website, and it's called the CNS Quick Check. It's a blue box that you can find there. And so this, whether you're a nutritionist or a health professional with an advanced health-related degree, this is, a good way to see what your requirements are and what the process is for earning the CNS. So many of you kind of fit in that blue box, the nutritionist or the health professional. And so you'll see we kind of always go with like our 3 E's, which is, well, degree, or the E is education, and the coursework fits into the education, and then the experience and the examination. So once you've completed the coursework, the degree, the experience, and you pass the exam, you will be awarded the CNS credential. And then at the bottom, we have recertification, which I'll talk a lot about all of these areas throughout this presentation. But there is, we just like to let you know up front, there is a recertification requirement for earning continuing education credits every 5 years. So I've taken some screenshots of our website. Many of you have visited the site before, and it's theana.org/certify is really where you'll find this whole screen. There's a lot of information on the website, and sometimes it can be a little challenging to find it. So again, if you just kind of go in theana.org/certify or theana.org, and then you'll see certify in that top menu, the third one from the left. And so this is the area that you'll become most familiar with in the process of becoming a CNS, as well as when you earn the certification. And you'll see that once you kind of click on become a CNS, you'll see on the left-hand side that there's various pathways to earn the CNS. And under each of the pathways is the eligibility requirements as well as the application process. So for our purposes, most of you will follow this first pathway for nutritionists and health professionals. So I'm going to just take you through the application process here. And while we list the application process by steps on the website, once you click into that application process link that I had, I just want to let you know that, for the way that it has to kind of be spelled out in some way, we list it by steps on the website, but steps 1, 2, and 3 really could be accomplished in varying orders. For example, you could start to earn the supervised practice experience, or the SPE as we refer to it, once you are matriculated in the qualifying degree program. So you don't have to wait until you graduate to start earning the hours. On the other hand, you may begin the SPE hours after you graduate, and perhaps even years after you graduate. So this slide shows the exam application process and the SPE process, including fees and the documents necessary to submit. And then it also shows who should submit each document and how they should be submitted. So the application documents are submitted by you, the candidate, and those will be uploaded to your portal. Those documents that are to be submitted by a third party, like your letters of recommendation, supervisor reports and applications, and school programs, or your transcripts, those will be submitted by those third parties directly to us, the BCNS. And if you're already an ANA member, you should already have a portal account. But if not, then you will need to set one up, and it doesn't cost anything to set up a portal. You'll just go to the ANA membership page, the ana.org/membership. And it's important to note, again, you don't have to pay. You don't have to be a paying ANA member to have a portal account. There's an unpaid membership option called Professional Associate, and that is free. So you can choose that one if you'd like, and then follow the prompts to enter, your information and a username and password. You may find, however, that you want to take advantage of the benefits that the ANA offers for the student or professional member. So then you would click on the membership level of your choice and fill in the information fields. And again, you'll set up a username and password. And Amy can put the link for membership. But again, this and we'll make this PowerPoint available to everyone as well. And the membership link is in this PowerPoint. But we do definitely urge you to keep your username and password, as you do all your usernames and passwords, in a safe and accessible place, because you will need it to log into your portal for various times throughout the application process and throughout your life as a CNS certificant. And every time you'll submit a document or a fee during this process, you'll do so by logging into the portal. And this also is for recertification. So again, you're going to have this portal account for a very long time. There is a tutorial for using the portal on various pages of the website, including the pathway page that I just showed you that's called the application process. So we invite you to watch that brief tutorial on how to use the portal. So you'll, you'll apply to sit for the exam. Again, it can be done in different orders, but to apply to sit for the exam, you will have to complete the degree and the coursework. So don't apply if you say, well, I'm going to be graduating in May, so let me just get everything in on time or now so that I can start the process. We do need to have that official transcript from your school sent to us, as I said, directly from them, either by mail or email. So you do have to wait until you complete the E part, the degree and the coursework, to apply to sit for the exam. But there's no maximum time limit to sit for the exam after you complete these requirements. So if you're graduating in June, you can sit for the exam at any time next year or the year after if you're not quite ready. And then another kind of time frame to mention here is that after passing the exam, you have up to 5 years to complete those 1,000 hours of supervised practice experience. So there's plenty of time to do that. You do not have to complete the hours in order to apply or to sit for the exam. And so here is what it kind of looks like for the portal. When you go into the portal, there's for instructions of choosing a document, and like any other portal, going to find it on your hard drive and then uploading it. And this is just a screenshot of what it looks like for payment options. So you'll go into the forms, you'll go into the portal, you'll go into membership, certifications, and trainings, and then there will be a link to either forms or payment. And once you start to use it, like anything else, you'll become much more familiar with the process. So I've sort of taken the liberty here of outlining the requirements for the education or for your courses here. And this is a sample of what the exam application looks like. And something to note is that for nutrition, advanced level nutrition courses, as you can see here, the current requirement is 9 semester credit hours. And so for anyone who is applying to sit for the exam for June, 9 will be the requirement. But for those who are applying to sit for the December of 2022 exam or after, the requirement goes up to 12 semester credit hours. So many of you are enrolled in a program that has 12 at least semester credit hours in advanced level nutrition, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I just want to kind of make that point known. And this change went, we posted this in May of 2020, and it goes into effect in December 2022. So anytime we make a major change in requirements, we post it with at least a year, if not more, in advance. So that information is always posted to the website. So these are just some examples of advanced level nutrition courses that are that may be in your MS program. And on the website, there's a section that's called a curriculum overview. And so that will give you a full detailed account of courses that meet the requirement of graduate level nutrition courses. The other thing to note in the coursework requirement is that nutrition is the only category that the courses you must have taken are at the graduate level. The rest of them can be taken at the undergraduate or graduate level. So if you are in a program where there are where it's quarter hours instead of semester credit hours, we do require that you convert those hours. So quarter hour divided by 1.5 equals semester credit hours. So we do really want you to be careful of that, and we'll be mindful and to list all of the hours in semester credit hours earned. And then for biochemistry courses, here you need 6 semester credit hours in biochemistry. Again, I list some of the courses that are, that you'll typically find in your program. Some of the programs have these built into the program. So you need 6 semester credit hours of biochemistry. Many of you have taken biochemistry at the undergraduate level, so you can use those credits to meet these requirements. And of course, you'll have to get those official transcripts submitted to us as well, so that we see that in fact you took undergraduate biochemistry at a regionally accredited institution. Some programs, some master's programs do not have the full 6 hours of biochemistry. So, you might have either had to take it undergraduate, or there's a chance that you may have to take another biochemistry course in addition to your MS program. This is one area that, if anything, this is where some students tend to be lacking. So I just want to point that out to you. And then for anatomy and physiology, there's a 3 semester credit requirement here. And again, many of the MS programs have a 3 credit course included in the program, and others do not. So you may have taken this undergraduate, and as I mentioned with biochemistry, it may perhaps mean that you have to take another course. It could be an online course, it could be at a community college, it could be with the school that you are now. There's so many different options of where you can take the additional courses if you need it. And it just has to be taken at a regionally accredited university for credit, can't be audited, and you do have to submit the official transcripts. And then for clinical and life sciences, here are some, not a complete list of courses that will meet the requirements. And you can include, other electives and other undergraduate courses. So then in the last course section is one more new requirement. So again, like the nutrition, the increase in nutrition courses, this is a new requirement for those who are applying to sit for the December 2022 or later exam. So this is 2 semester credit hours of behavioral science. So this can include psychology, health coaching, motivational interviewing, motivational counseling, etc. And you may or may not have courses in your program, again, that meets this. So something that's different in this category is that you can also, if you don't have a 2 or 3 semester credit hour course, you can also apply continuing education units. So if you've taken, a webinar or went to a conference or something on health coaching or motivational interviewing, that can also be applied here. So we would just need to have some an official CE certificate that shows that you have achieved that. So this is, information on the supervised practice experience. So this is the second part, the experience portion of the requirements. And satisfactory completion of the CNS supervised practice experience is essential to being awarded the CNS credential. The program is structured to ensure that each candidate obtains the in-depth knowledge and skills expected of an advanced level nutrition professional, while maintaining the flexibility required to achieve individual career goals. As such, candidates are responsible for tailoring their own supervised practice experience based on all of our program requirements, and making sure that you locate and work with supervisors who meet the qualifications that we have outlined on the website and in the about the supervised practice experience information. So again, although the supervised practice experience may be completed before or after passing the certifying exam, as I mentioned, it is important to note that historically, those who have completed the practice experience do tend to perform better on the exam than those who have not, or who have not had any experience. The CNS credential will not be awarded, of course, until the completed experience has been approved by the BCNS. And really, the exam is based on, clinical cases rather than memorizing information. So that's why we find that when you do have some experience, you'll perform better on the exam. And so I have this link here. Detailed information on the supervised practice experience can be found on the website here at this link. And I highly recommend you to become familiar with the requirements as soon as possible. So even if you're not quite ready to begin, it's a good idea to know what's upcoming and what you're going to have to be doing for that SPE program. One other very important thing to note is that state licensing requirements may be different than those of the BCNS requirements. So while we are working proactively to help you get licensed at the end of the process, and require sort of that common denominator of most states, we recommend very strongly that you find out what your state licensing requirements are, including the supervisor requirements, before you begin the hours. So some states do have licensing requirements, others do not. And, you never know where you're going to end up. You may never think that you're going to move to a different state, and, life happens and circumstances happen. So you may move to a state that requires licensing. So again, just really important to be aware. I think I have a slide later on, but there is a section on advocacy on the ANA website. And so there is a map of the United States, and you can search by state. And our advocacy team is working on updating that information. So check back often, but that's where you can find, and it has links to each of the states. So again, definitely strongly urge you to see what licensing is. And just again, to kind of clarify, the CNS is a certification and it is not a state license. It is a pathway to many state licenses, but I just like to distinguish the difference because some people do get confused there. So other things to mention about the supervised practice experience, there are two types, observational and direct. And I'll go into a little bit of detail there, but well, as you can see, we have some examples here. But I also want to mention that when I talk supervisor approval, again, so we require that your supervisor be approved, and I recommend that you look to see what those requirements are even before you're ready to work with somebody. But supervisor approval does not necessarily mean that the work experience with that supervisor is approved by the BCNS. So there's qualifications that we will approve that supervisor if they have a, an MS or a CNS, that they meet the degree requirements, that they have at least 3 years of full-time experience in clinical nutrition, but we may not know, what the experience is going to be. So it's really up to you to understand, what your requirements are and work with that supervisor so you're both on the same page as far as what, what's included and what's not included. And then there are reporting requirements that I'll go into more detail. We have some case reports and a tracking tool and a candidate's report and supervisor report. So those are other things that are involved in the SPE. So here's what is sort of included in observational experience. And then direct client experience. This is really the meat of the supervised practice experience. This is where you're working directly with the clients, where you're getting your experience, like I mentioned, where you will show that you are trained as a professional nutrition practitioner. So it's really important for you to discuss all of this with your supervisors when you first start to work together, or even before, to make sure that you're on the same page. You both understand, what the requirements are and how you're going to meet them together, and that you're going to be working, together. I say supervisors, usually plural, because we do recommend that you work with more than one supervisor and in more than one setting, really to get a broad level of experience to cover the competencies. Everybody works very differently, so it's a good idea to work with different supervisors to, get their background, their experience, and it's a somewhat of a mentorship as well. So it's always good to kind of have a broad range of experience that you're working with and learning from. So this is not a finite list at all of what's not included in the supervised practice experience, but these are just some of the common misperceptions of what some candidates and supervisors think may qualify. So, before you even start, please understand that research that is not related to a particular client that you're working with is not supervised practice experience. Teaching courses and teaching, delivering lectures and things like that, that's not supervised practice experience. And really that's in the word itself, the words practice experience, that's what it's all about. It's about, gaining the knowledge and skills expected of an advanced level nutrition professional. So moving on a little bit to the exam. So we looked at the education, we looked at the experience, and now we're looking at the exam. So the certification exam is offered 2 times every year, typically in the fall and, late fall, now early winter and spring. And the application deadline is 2 months prior to the exam dates. So we always have this information updated on the website, so please check there. I will say that the next CNS exam will be in June, and therefore the application deadline is in April 15th, I believe. Now I will say, depending on your school and program, if you might be cutting it close where you have graduated and you're just waiting for your transcripts, like in late April, early May, we have some flexibility. We can work that out in some cases with you and your school. So, if you miss the April 15th deadline as far as submitting your transcript, there may be some wiggle room for extending that deadline as long as you get all of the other application materials in on time. So there's resources listed on the website to help you prepare for the exam, as I have some links here. And like I mentioned, having some, if not all of that supervised practice experience will help, as well, as the exam is based on clinical situations and not memorized facts and definitions. And while we can't endorse or recommend any courses, we do have some listed on the website, like study.com and examedge.com, et cetera. There we have links to these study courses. And then we also recommend like test taking tips and strategies, for candidates to learn or review strategies on taking multiple choice exams. So sometimes, you may know all the content, but you're not a strong test taker. Maybe you found that on SATs or ACTs, you took a course that helped you a lot. So that's also, a recommended way to prepare for this exam. So these, again, sometimes a little hidden on the website. So these are links to some of the things that I went over here, about the SPE program, the list of the competencies. Those are also listed on the tracking tool and the candidates report that I mentioned. Those are two other forms that you'll fill out during the supervised, to document your supervised practice experience. Become a CNS supervisor, even if you're not looking to become a CNS supervisor, but you're looking to see what it takes to be one, and maybe you work with somebody or know somebody who could potentially be your supervisor. That's where it shows what the qualifications are. And then I had shown you when you're on the website, that step 2 of the application process. You have the eligibility requirements and the application process. So that's a direct link to that page as well. And then as far as finding a supervisor, you can feel free to reach out to Amy and me for a list of approved supervisors. And we're happy to provide that to you. And then, you can reach out to those supervisors to see if they are taking on new candidates and if it might be a good fit as far as working together. And, networking, maybe you're already involved in some networking things. There are some networking and mentorship opportunities within the ANA. Being a student member, you do have one of the benefits is having access to the mentors within ANA. And just to clarify, mentors are different than supervisors. There may be some overlap, of course, but ANA mentors may be people who are not qualified or not interested in being a supervisor, but they may, they may want to mentor you in other ways, or they could potentially introduce you to someone who could be your supervisor. So always networking, is can help you find a supervisor, or obviously be beneficial for other things along the way. And I can't stress enough that you need to make sure that your supervisor is approved, meets the qualifications, and is approved by us before you begin the experience. Last thing any of us want you to do is to spend time and hours that won't be able to be counted. And I, can't stress enough to what I said earlier, that just because a supervisor is approved, that does not mean that the work will be improved. So that's really important for you to understand all of that and discuss with your supervisor prior to working together. And there's many settings for your supervised practice experience. The 1,000 hours can come from multiple venues and supervisors, which we recommend. Supervisors, you could have one supervisor that in multiple settings. So maybe you already have a job or a role in a community setting, but maybe the person there that you work under is not qualified to be a CNS supervisor. So you're working with a supervisor, on a kind of like side basis where you're meeting with them regularly, but they may not be in the setting where you work, and that's fine too. And you can work with in a private practice or any combination of the above, as it says here. So this, I mentioned a few things a couple of times throughout the presentation because I don't want you to miss it. And these are kind of frequently asked questions. They could already be in the chat. I'm not looking at the chat at the moment, but when can you start the supervised practice experience? So once again, once you are matriculated in the qualifying degree program, and anytime thereafter, you may begin the supervised practice experience. We definitely recommend that you at least either start with those observational hours like trailing or shadowing a supervisor, but definitely, wait Usually the first year of your program is not always the best time to start that supervised practice experience direct hours, because you haven't yet had the foundational coursework that would qualify you to work with clients. So, again, you can begin with some observational hours, or you may just want to begin to wait until you've kind of got that first year under your belt. And then, kind of move into the direct hours when you feel more comfortable and you've had that that didactic coursework that that kind of qualifies you to start working with clients. So I want to go into a little bit more detail on the supervised practice experience. It's broken down by categories A, B, and C, and then within each category, there are a number of competencies. Some are overlapping because you will kind of work on these competencies like on an ongoing basis with a client. But you can kind of think of personalized nutrition assessment and interpretation as the initial consultation. And you have to have at least 200 hours in each of these categories, A, B, and C. And then the rest of the 400 hours can be in any of them, but you've got to have at least 200 in each of these. So the assessment is an ongoing dynamic process that incorporates a systemic approach to collect, record, and interpret quantitative and qualitative inputs regarding diet and lifestyle, behavior, symptoms, nutritional genomics, biochemical laboratory markers, and personal and family health history. So the nutrition assessment is used to identify existing manifestations, as well as the underlying root causes of imbalance, which contribute to risk factors and current nutritional health issues, to enable effective treatment and prevention strategies and to monitor improvements. And then you kind of move into category B, which is that personalized nutrition intervention, education, counseling, and ongoing care. Or you can think of it as the designing of a plan for a client, for example. A candidate, you would be able to develop the right plan for a health condition, make sure there are not like drug nutrient interactions, understand the client's behavior, to know what types of changes they're willing to make as you develop a plan with them, and any kind of use of botanicals or other things in your recommendation. So this is that ongoing care, that is that category B. And then category C, again, it's that monitoring and evaluation. You can think of it as like follow-up consultations. So category C can cover all the competencies in categories A and B, since you would be doing some of these things in a follow-up appointment and monitoring, those same types of things that you're working with your clients. So for example, in category A, you're assessing supplement use, for example, or sleep, exercise, food diary. And so while you may do this as the initial assessment for a client, you would also likely perform this in follow-up visits as well. So time spent in any of the categories may not be all the time that you're spending with the clients. It could be that, putting together the plan and that, follow-up work. It's regular like reevaluation, treatment plans, meeting goals, etc. So this is where we're going to go more into a couple things that I mentioned throughout. The tools that you use to document your supervised practice experience. Don't wait until it's over and think, oh, I'm going to go back now and track everything that I've done over the past, 6 months or 3 years. Use these tools ongoing on a daily or weekly basis. So the tracking tool is, and I have links here, of course, to both of them. This is, an ongoing Excel spreadsheet where you're checking off the competencies that you met, you're including, the daily work that you're doing with clients, which supervisor you work with, what the setting is. So we're revising it a little bit, and we tend to do that on kind of an ongoing basis. We do take feedback really well from from candidates, from supervisors, from certificants, everyone that's using these tools. So we always just want to make it the best tool possible, and not, not something that is, busy work for you necessarily. But so definitely take some time to look around in that tracking tool. And we also have a tutorial that goes along with it, and we'll be updating that as well. And then the candidates report, this is a summary of all the hours and supervisors that you work with. And there is a self-evaluation for the competencies there. So again, use this on an ongoing basis, become familiar with it so that you don't have to go back and try to remember, how you met the competencies, because these tools are really how we internally can evaluate your work. Have you met the competencies? Are you at the level of a professional, nutritionist, to be able to provide that, high level CNS certification, that Ncca accredited certification that we spoke about earlier. So all of the materials that you submit will go through your portal. And then there are supervisor materials as well, and they will send them to us by email. So we get that directly from the supervisor. So in addition to the application forms and the tracking tool and the candidates report, candidates are required to use these two forms, the PN case data collection report and the case report. So first, and links, of course, to here as well, you'll use the PN case data collection as a tool to organize all aspects of a client to ensure that you are adhering to the PN care process. And you should use this with each client that you work with, and then you'll review these with your supervisors. So you don't need to submit these reports to the BCNS, but use them as ongoing tools to review with your supervisors. And then one of each of these must be submitted to your supervisor, sort of as a final project when you complete the practice experience, at least the portion with that supervisor. And you'll see that the information that you document here is very similar to information that you should be gathering on all clients, and perhaps you have already used an EHR, an electronic health record, or another tool, whether you're using it in school or you've used it in the, on your own with clients, or in, some other kind of setting. And completing these forms will provide the practice and expertise required for a nutrition professional. So this will be proof that you understand the PN care process, and it will really be a great tool that you will take with you throughout your career that becomes kind of second, it becomes just a regular process of filling out these applications, or filling out, the information on your clients. And then the PN case report, you'll use this to present and summarize the comprehensive case. And again, one of these you will use to submit to your supervisor as a final project. So the supervisors will kind of check off on their supervisor report that they did in fact review and approve these forms while working with you. So this it goes into a lot more detail about each of these forms. And so I invite you to, because I want to make sure that we still have time for questions and answers, but I invite you to, look through. I'm going to show you a link with more information on here, but really this is, can't stress enough how important all of the tools are that we provide to you to, really go through a client case from start to finish, or perhaps not even finish. You may work with a client, indefinitely, but this is a great way to document, what you are doing, what the history of is for this client, any kind of medications or supplements that they're on, and really, all the information that you need to work with to ensure that you're providing the best care for them. So when you're working with really any document, make sure that you fill everything in that's relevant. These cases, for our purposes, they have to have occurred within the past 5 years of the time that you're submitting your supervised practice experience to us. Your supervisor, again, will discuss and approve them with you, and you do not need to submit these to the BCNS. So here's kind of a summary page. There's a tutorial. We're big into the tutorials. I know it's a lot of information, so And I know a lot of people kind of take it in a little bit better when we're discussing it and showing screenshots. But for the PN case data collection, there's one tutorial on sort of the general information, kind of what I'm giving here. But then there's also part 1 and 2 that really goes into the details of the form itself and the fields and how to, kind of fill things in, how they are relevant to your client. And then we also have a tutorial on the PN case report. And this may be something that you will use if you want to submit posters or papers for publication. So this is also a really good tool for you to get to become familiar with in this process. So a lot of forms and applications, and that's where I really try to streamline it for you in this presentation. The supervisor, as I've mentioned, you will need to make sure that they get approved, and they will do so by submitting an application. After you work with them at the end of the practice experience, they'll submit a report. And then they also have, and I'm happy to share this with you as I do here, this third link, they have a form that they can use to review those PN cases that I just mentioned. So that might be helpful for you to see what they're looking at in reviewing that form. And then for you, the candidate, the candidate's report, the tracking tool, watch the tutorials, and those are, what you're responsible for. And then this is a page on the website that really summarizes it all. And I have the link on the lower left corner here, but each on the where you see the explanation, watch the tutorial, and then the PN case data collection, if you can see it, they're all links to the tutorials that I just mentioned. And then it kind of breaks out what the requirements are for each of our certification candidates. So these documents are being used kind of across the board for not just the CNS, but some of our other certifications, which I'm going to explain briefly in a moment. And so here are the responsibilities for you, the candidate. So again, become familiar with, we kind of really went through all of this, but I don't want to overwhelm you, but there are just really to be aware of what's coming and what the reporting requirements are for the supervised practice experiences, kind of the gist of that here. And then I mentioned briefly earlier, and this is something for down the road, but again, just like to mention it here, that there is a recertification requirement. So once you become a CNS, you will, like any other certification, you will want to have that ongoing, professional development to stay current in the field. And so that is required over every 5 years, you'll be required to earn 75 CEs. And just to kind of put things into perspective, typically the ANA summit, well, it's varied over the years, but you could earn like maybe 15 CEs for attending that 3-day conference. We have many webinars on the ANA website that you can earn, it's typically 1 hour is 1 CE. So if you just plan it accordingly, it's very easy to earn the CEs. And of course, you'll be glad to keep up with continuing education in the field. And there's various ways that you can earn that. So I mentioned earlier on the advocacy section of the ANA website, to see what your state licensing requirements are. That's a pull down menu where it says select a state. And you can spend a little time in here. I know there's a great guide when in the advocacy section that's kind of like a beginner's guide to advocacy. And we can put you in touch with our advocacy folks if you have any specific questions. And we do invite you to join the ANA, as I've mentioned, as a student member or a professional member. There are a lot of great benefits. It's really a community that has a lot to offer as you're starting out in the field, or maybe you've been in it for quite some time, but it's a great way to connect with each other, with other professionals, with other students, and really also at times to make a difference, to contribute to different things that we have going on, to volunteer, to eventually, become a part of one of our boards or councils that are important, to keep up the credential and the profession. So I know I have this in here twice because I just want to remind you to save the date. And just lastly, and then we'll open it up for questions. In addition to the CNS, now, of course, that's our flagship credential. That's NCCA accredited, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. But I do just want to let you know, or you might have heard about these other certifications, and just to kind of clarify what they are. But things like the CNS and the CNGS, the ketogenic and the nutritional genomics specialty areas, like these are ways to really get more detailed, get more kind of involved in a specialty area, if that is of interest to you. So after you have the CNS, these are other things that we have available. Both the ANA has trainings, and then within the BCNS, which is the certifying arm of the ANA, we offer these certifications. So they really just identify you as a trained professional in areas of specialty. And there are badges and letters that go along with earning these certifications as well. And then the newest one is our personalized nutrition practitioner. We have a new training that is called our PNP training. This is geared more toward people who are healthcare professionals, but not nutrition specialists. So this may be some way down the road if you want to get additional CEs, but this is kind of a different pathway for people who want to integrate nutrition into their field of healthcare. So in addition to my personal email address, and many of you, if not all, already have Amy's email address, we do have a general mailbox that I just, I'll be honest, it goes to both of us. So certifications@Nutrition Specialist is another way to reach us if you have any questions. But we will start to take your questions now, and I appreciate
individualized questions in chat because we have a ton of questions. So if we don't get to it, please email us, but we'll do our best to get to what we can. So Stephanie's asking, do we need to submit the supervisor approval application if our supervisor has already been approved?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. So if a supervisor has been approved, and they will know, it's a 3-year period that their approval is good for. And then there's a 1-page, just kind of a very general supervisor addendum, we call it, that your supervisor should know about, but good for you to know as well, that they are required to submit to us. It's a way for us to have like on record, that we know who you are working with, kind of for everyone. So yeah, there's just a 1-pager. So if they're already approved, they're approved, but they need to fill out that form just so that we know that we have it on record.
Okay. Stevie's asking, do we submit one candidate's report total, or do we need to submit one per supervisor as we do with the tracking tool?
So it's one candidate report, and that's a summary of all of your supervisors, all of your settings, all of your hours, and a self rating, you self-rate yourself on the competencies. So one candidate's report, and then tracking tools for each of your supervisors at this time. Yes, thanks.
Okay, Amanda's asking, so if we graduate June 18th, it sounds like we won't be able to take the exam until December.
That is correct. And again, I don't look at that as like, oh, I missed it. Again, that gives you time to get some of those supervised practice experience hours to work with clients directly. And so that, you will be more prepared for the December exam.
Okay, and we had several people ask, who can the letters of recommendation come from? Can that be faculty of our school, supervisors, who else?
Yes. Yes, faculty, because I know, many of you will not have had professional, situations or settings yet to submit, to have those people be your letter writers. But yes, faculty usually is a good, good source of a letter of recommendation. Anyone that you have worked with in the past that is a healthcare professional. So not like an HR person that you worked with, even if it's a healthcare or nutrition setting, that person who's writing the letter needs to be, a healthcare and nutrition professional.
Okay. Melly is asking certification in states. Currently residing temporarily in an illegal state of Georgia, planning on moving. Can I start my supervision with someone that resides in the state I'll be moving to, or do I have to wait?
If you're going to be practicing, in the state that you're moving to, that's probably where you're going to want to be licensed if they have licensing. So that's where you should check with what their requirements are. So if you live, for our requirements, it doesn't matter, where you live, because you need that, just the practice experience and meeting the competencies and working with an approved supervisor. But again, for the state licensing, you should check with the state that you plan to practice in.
Would undergraduate sociology count towards behavioral science?
Sociology, probably. We'd have to just look at the course, outline. Check the curriculum overview first. And I'm going to retract that because I don't think that we have included yet the behavioral science in the curriculum overview. But if you can submit that course, the content outline or the syllabus, if you'd like, to us, and we can take a look at it.
Is there a time limit to when courses time out if we did take some classes as undergraduate? So in other words, does it matter how long ago I took a class?
No, not at all. As long as you can get that official transcript from the school and that it is a regionally accredited school, then it doesn't matter when you took that course. I'm just going to let my dog.
Fine. The next question is, can the Sbe be done under a DC and in any state?
Can the Sbe, okay, so for a DC to be approved as a supervisor, they also need to have an MS in nutrition. And I know there are certain states, like, and I can't cite off what every state, but I know for sure that New York won't approve supervision done under a DC. So as a supervisor, if you're working with a DC, they should also have an MS in nutrition.
Will the hours needed per section, like biochemistry, for example, need to be prorated for a program that is on trimesters?
I mean, if it's semester credit hours, then it translates like accordingly. For trimesters, it depends on the school, but I think with trimesters, they work on semester credit hours. So you just have to make sure if it's.
Yeah, I know MUIH is trimesters and it coordinates to semester hours. If my program has a virtual clinic class, can those hours count towards the SPE?
Only if they've been vetted and approved by us first. And so we have worked with some schools to do so. So if it's, if your faculty, if they don't know if they have been approved by the BCNS, then you can reach out to us, and maybe it's something that we can work with the school itself to get more information on the courses, to be able to vet them and approve them.
This question goes along with that one. Our virtual clinic at UB was called Virtual Clinic 250 hours. So does that mean that we cannot earn any other observational hours?
Right, that's correct.
How do you locate a supervisor? I put my email in the chat there. So if you're looking for a supervisor, reach out and I can send you a list.
Yep. And like I mentioned, there's a slide in here as far as how to find a supervisor, in addition to the list that we can provide, networking. And if you are an ANA member, you can also have access to mentors. You can, we can put you in touch also with CNSs. They're always, I can't speak for all of them, but many of them are happy to, help candidates, whether they can be a supervisor or recommend someone or tell you how they went about finding their supervisor.
Sure. A couple questions about exam deadlines. So the application deadline for the June exam is April 15th, and the application deadline for the December exam is October 14th. So there's a couple questions on that. If I don't pass the exam the first time, can I take it again the same year?
Yes, you can. Yeah, and I neglected to say that throughout the presentation, but yes, you can take the exam as many times as you need to. You know, hopefully not that many, but you won't need to. But yes, you can take it in the same calendar year.
Okay, and let's see.
And I will just say also that the exams are held now at test centers throughout the country and really around the world. So we work with a test center company that once you're approved to sit for the exam and we kind of like open registration, you'd get an email that says you can now register for the exam, which means you would go on that test center website. The exam is offered for during a 5-day period. So December, I think it's what, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15th. And so you would have the option for any of those days, you would pick a 4-hour time slot at a test center that's hopefully close, you know, close to you. And so there is an additional fee that's paid directly to the test center. Many of you have, I'm sure, experienced that kind of a, you know, an exam before, but it's on a computer at a test center where you might be sitting next to somebody who's taking, you know, a totally different certification exam.
Okay, I have the older hours tracking sheet that I've been using for the past 9 months. Now there's an updated tracker. Should I start using this one? And do I just submit both?
I mean, if it's been 9 months, you can use the one that you've been using. It hasn't changed that much since then. The new version that we're going to, it'll be a little different, but we don't want you to have to redo the tracking, you know, materials. And like I mentioned, when we implemented the new additional, you know, coursework requirements, we always give, you know, a time frame that it's kind of like a transition. So, you know, we don't expect you to just have to put down what you're already working on and do the new, you know, use the new tools. So you don't have to. You know, it might be something that you want to just like say, okay, starting next week, I'm going to use that new tracking tool. It's going to be a little easier, but you can use what you've been using. I will say, however, if for some reason you downloaded a document from 2 years ago, no, then please look on our website and use the new documents.
Okay, Stephanie asked, the one slide says 750 hours of direct client experience is required, 200 hours in each category, and the remaining hours can be in any of the categories. Where is the 750 coming from? I thought only one category is the direct client experience.
No, so the categories, category A, B, and C, those are overall. So you're going to have some observational hours in category A, B, and C. You're going to have direct hours in category A, B, and C. So those are going to overlap. Because if you're shadowing someone, you know, in an observational, for your observational hours, you know, it's going to cross those competencies. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you want to keep answering questions? We're at the top of the hour.
I know it. I think we're going to stop at the top of the hour. But I love all the questions and thank you all so much for being engaged. And what we can do is have, you know, take these questions and answer each of you individually for the questions that you're answering. Does that make sense?
Yes, and there's also going to be a follow-up webinar on April 13th that's just specific to SPE. So I did put a link to that in the chat if you want to register for that. That'll be a follow-up to this one. And I'll save the questions and we'll reach out to everyone. All right.